Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Welcome back to The Claim Game, everybody. I'm Jeremy Zug, and this is Kathryn Zug. We are your hosts today.
As a reminder, we are working through our revenue cycle management best practices, where we work our way through the RCM proverbial game board, showing you how to strategize for winning in the 6 key territories of RCM, which are credentialing, patient registration, eligibility and benefits, payment posting, aging follow-up, and claim submission, in that order.
We're in the credentialing territory, and last week's episode was about stage 3 of credentialing, which is application follow-up. We introduced tools and gave our advice on follow-up cadence to get you to a contract as quickly as possible.
That's right. And if you missed the initial setup of the board and you're wondering what in the world the territory is and want the bigger context, make sure to check out round 1, introducing the board landscape for the full board setup.
Today, we're moving into stages 4 and 5 of credentialing. This is not the final stage of credentialing, by the way. We're narrowing in on stages 4 and 5 today out of 6 categories. This is where you truly claim your network territory by entering the network.
We'll talk about the vital clauses you need to scrutinize in your contract, what you might be able to negotiate, and why the start date is your real proof of in-network status.
So, Kathryn, our application has been approved.
Woo-hoo!
Let's say that's a huge win, right? Most payers will issue a contract at this point. But what's the crucial part here? Do we just sign and move on?
Absolutely not, though I would say many providers do. This document is vital, and reviewing it carefully is, well, it really should be, a non-negotiable. While we aren't attorneys, and we're not going to pretend to be, we can't provide a legal advice, but we can highlight some of the key areas that you absolutely need to scrutinize. Your attorney should also likely review this contract and may provide other recommendations for your review, but we will offer our thoughts from a billing and RCM perspective. So think of this as your due diligence before you fully commit to a game partner.
Right. Okay. So what are those key areas? What's the first thing providers should be looking for in these contracts?
Well, I just want to take a moment to say 2 things. 1, now is the time to identify necessary changes. So if you find any clause that are non-negotiables for you and the insurance company is not willing to budge, you may need to be willing to walk away from this company even after all the waiting. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. And 2, so hold it loosely. 2, your request for changes may extend your start date timeline. If your requests go beyond some of those boilerplate items in the contract, the insurance company's legal team is going to need to get involved. And so you might have to wait longer. I'm not saying that's not worth it, but it is a consideration. When you're deciding if it's worth to submit a negotiation, keep that in mind. So keep that in mind as you're reviewing and flagging things. But okay, first things to consider. First up, your responsibilities. So this section will outline what the insurance company expects you to do as part of this relationship, and is really a matter of preference on your part regarding what is present in this clause. It's crucial to know exactly what you're agreeing to, so don't gloss this over. If there are responsibilities listed in this section that you don't understand or cannot in good conscience agree to, you will either need to negotiate or refuse to move forward from here.
Yeah, right. So, what are some of the items that might exist in that section?
Sure, an insurance contract for an in network provider outlines a range of responsibilities and obligations designed to benefit both the insured patient and the insurance companies. Here are some common responsibilities. The first is that you have to accept the negotiated rate as payment in full. So you're going to have your fee schedule, which you should not sign this contract without. But there's a term that goes along with that. It's about balance billing. So if I have a standard rate of $200, and if I have a cash pay client come in for services, I would charge them $200. But if I've agreed to a fee schedule that says 172, I cannot then charge the remaining $28 to this patient. You have to write it off. So balance billing is when you take that adjustment amount and you charge the patient for you. You are agreeing not to do that. The second is direct billing to the insurance company. So as an in-network provider, you are responsible for submitting claims directly to the patient's health plan, usually through an EHR of some sort and through a clearinghouse. And usually there's timely filing requirements along with that. Compliance with insurance plan policies and procedures. So you must adhere to the insurance company's specific rules regarding referrals, pre-authorization requirements, medical necessity criteria, and documentation requirements. This would include proper coding as well for services rendered. 4, providing quality care and meeting standards. So the insurance company often have quality standards that in-network providers must meet to remain in network, and they're expected to provide medically necessary services as defined within this contract. 5, participation in credentialing and recredentialing. We have already spent a lot of time talking about this. We're going to talk about this more in, I don't know if it's next episode or the one after, but soon we'll talk about this and your need to reattest your credentialing. Number 6, maintain accurate patient information and records. This is why you keep cards on file and you ask for changes in these things every time a patient comes in. You got to keep that up to date. It is now a legal requirement, not just really good practice. Notifying patients of costs. So while there's no balance billing, you still have to inform patients of estimated cost sharing. Do they have a copay, deductible, coinsurance? Now, ultimately, it is their responsibility to know this, but that doesn't mean that you haven't done your due diligence in looking up what they might owe and communicating that properly, especially because they don't know your rates. So you have to help them understand that as well. Number 8, cooperation with any audits and reviews. So if you happen to be audited, and I know that's a dirty word, but it's not always dirty, just that you're going to let them review medical records, billing practices, making sure that everything is compliant, that you're going to cooperate with that. And then number 9, participating in network adequacy efforts. So this is the idea of you continuing to take patients that are within the network. So we talked about this in an earlier round about what do I do if I'm trying to manage my caseload. There are proper ways to do this and improper ways to do this. And the insurance company needs to see that you're going to continue caring for their patients. So if you decide that 30% is the right percentage of your practice, when you hit 30%, yes, you can tell them that you're full. And as long as you continue to see patients within their network, I don't think they're going to do anything. It's when you're not seeing any patients within the network that's a problem. And when you have closed the network for more than a year without talking to them a second time.
Great. Yeah. So then what about the payer side? What do the payer responsibilities in these contracts look like?
Insurance company responsibilities that you should be looking for. So this spells out what they are committing to for your practice. And it's really about ensuring that you have a balanced partnership. I think in round 4, Dan spent a lot of time talking about partnerships and just like, what is the mutual benefit? If we're not mutually benefiting, it's not favorable to both sides. It's not really worth it to do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what are some of those terms that you would want to see being provided to you?
Yeah, I can go through a list here. So I would be looking for really clear payment timelines. I want to know how quickly they're agreeing to pay me because this isn't a normal 9 to 5 where I get paid biweekly, and I need to at least have some understanding of my cash flow. So there's usually a time frame in which they are required to pay you. If this isn't outlined, make sure it gets added to the contract so that you know when you can expect payment. Or if it's really long, I would be negotiating this. Yeah.
If you can. Yeah. For sure.
So number 2, transparent and provider-friendly dispute resolution and appeals process. So is there a well-defined, straightforward process for disputing incorrect payments, appealing denials, or resolving other contract issues? Are their steps clear? Do they outline reasonable response times for their side? Denials are just part of the game, right? I mean, you're going to have them. Even if you have the cleanest of practices around data collection and submission, it is really unlikely that you are going to escape denials 100%. I don't know that I've ever seen it.
No, it's unlikely. It's not going to happen.
So it's going to happen. It's part of the game. So if it's part of the game, is it a fair game? Do they have clear rules for appealing? Is there a path? So it's something that I like to say that I love about billing is that it's really linear. If the payer has made it non-linear or has not shown a very clear path on how to submit an appeal, denials are unavoidable. Appeals should be extremely rare. Appeals only happen when denials aren't properly handled, to be honest. And so if you're facing a denial that you cannot resolve, but you have all the evidence that says it should be resolved, that's when you submit an appeal. And so they have to have a process. Is there clear paperwork? Is there a place to submit this appeal? Who do I talk to escalate things? How quickly is it going to be resolved? You should not just be shouting into a void. No, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, great.
Audit and recoupment clauses. How long do they have to audit your claims and potentially recoup payments? You need to look for a reasonable look back period. So an example would be 18 to 24 months, not indefinitely. On the flip side, there's timely filing. And on the patient side, there's statute of limitation. There should be a limit to this as well. So does the contract outline a clear process for notifying you of a recoupment, an opportunity to respond, an opportunity to appeal, notification of an audit? Unending audit windows are a major source of anxiety. I have heard it so much recently, the fear of recoupment.
Yeah, right.
Haven't you?
Yeah, clawbacks and recoupment are a big stressor in the life of a practice owner. So make sure that your contract is a two-way street, right? Don't be so quick to jump on a contract just because they issued you one.
Or those are really attractive reimbursement rates.
Right. But then can they go back 2 years and take their money back? So yeah, you want to make sure your revenue is sticky. So yeah, what else, Kathryn? What other clauses are we looking at?
Okay, so network requirements and referral process. So are their network requirements clear and feasible? If they have complex referral or prior authorization requirements, do they provide accessible tools or clear processes to manage them, or are they designed to be overly burdensome? Oh man, some prior authorization processes are hefty.
Huge.
So some can have so much red tape that it's a nightmare. A favorable contract outlines practical, manageable requirements that don't add unnecessary layers of administrative burden to your day-to-day operations, especially if you are a specialized practice that works on referrals constantly. That would be a high priority for me to look at.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
What about the length of the agreement, or if somebody wants to end the contract?
Yeah, I would say that would be the next clause to look at and can often be overlooked, but the term and termination clauses. How long is this contract actually valid? What are the conditions for ending this contract on either side? Because knowing this up front can save you a massive headache later on. This is also where you might see what's called a silence acceptance notice. This means that if the plan notifies you of a change and you don't respond in 30 days, it automatically becomes part of your contract without your ability to respond.
Silence is consent, and is all that means, basically.
So you need to be aware of such clauses. You also need to, I think about term and termination coming from both sides, and I'm like, man, if they can terminate with me and that's like that 30-day notice thing applies, oh
It's
man,
pretty wild.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, especially when you look at like term and termination is a popular topic right now, especially for those of you in Indiana at the moment, right? With Carolyn taking over management of the behavioral health contract from Anthem, and they came out, and this is all over the news. You can look this up, but lowering the rates by 47 to 52%. Read your termination clause if you're going to walk away from those Anthem clients because you can't afford to take a 50% cut in pay. So at any rate, let's get back to the silence as consent or silence acceptance clauses. That sounds a little tricky. What about the money side of things? What should providers absolutely not sign without seeing?
Compensation details.
Yeah, compensation is a big one.
You absolutely, positively should not sign anything if you haven't seen a fee schedule and you don't understand, I'm going to add this, you don't understand what their annual updates look like. I think that's another thing I'd be looking at. Like, do they offer raises? What are the chances that this is going to get cut next year? But this document outlines your contracted rates and your allowed amounts, that's which is synonymous, for your services. So if this is not included, request one, demand one.
Yeah, demand one.
They are obligated to give this to you before you sign the contract.
It's like taking a job without knowing what the salary is. You would never do that. So don't do it in your business.
I mean, I've seen it happen.
I know
I've seen it happen many times. They're like, oh, well, I know this other provider is getting good rates and I need to see patients here. So
it is eminently surprising.
Oh, man. Yes.
And speaking of rates, can providers actually negotiate them? What if the contract looks great, but the rates are lower than expected?
So, one, we just listened to Dan King, but our game maker, Kathy Gilbert, she is going to interview with you in round 8, which is next. She shares some really great insights on this. So come back for that next week for greater insight. She will mention that some plans, depending on their need for specific specialties, or if you're in an underserved area, may be open to negotiation. You may also remember that Dan King mentioned in round 4, there are different types of leverage that allow you to negotiate. You can highlight your specialty, your location, your patient's access to care, or the compensation rates of other providers in your area. And that's where things like Seraph and Clarify Health and Trek come in handy. So if you do a rate search locally, which we talked about in greater detail in round 2, you may also be able to highlight that a provider with similar expertise is making X% more than you locally and get higher rates that way. So there are certainly many angles to use to negotiate your rates, and this is the best time to do it before things are set in stone. It is much easier to negotiate your rates now than it is in 6 months.
Yeah, that's very true. That's huge.
Yeah, and I think we have a worksheet I'm going to drop in the show notes as well that you can use to outline some of the things that we just mentioned to submit with your rate negotiation.
Yes, please do that. Yeah, that's huge. Are there any caveats to that, right?
This episode was brought to you by Practice Solutions. At Practice Solutions, we identify and apply the right billing solution for your unique practice, moving beyond a one-size-fits-all approach. This might look like our full-service, done-for-you billing, where you can take a hands-off stance, a practice health check to identify where you can optimize your RCM processes, or using our practical tools within the Hourglass Learning Hub. One of our billing solutions will help simplify the complexities of working with insurance payers so you can have peace of mind, consistent cash flow, and more time to focus on your clinical mission. Founded in 2017, Practice Solutions was built to alleviate the administrative burden for private practice owners by installing smarter billing systems. We believe your time is better spent with patients, not billing issues. If you're ready to stop stressing about billing and start loving your practice again, visit practicesoul.com today. That's practicesol.com. Mention the promo code TheClaimGame to get 15% off your first 3 invoices for done-for-you billing, 15% off your practice health check, or 15% off your first year in the Hourglass Learning Hub. Again, that's promo code TheClaimGame.
So what else should we be scrutinizing? What about how quickly we need to get claims in?
Yeah, timely filing. Let's talk about timely filing. So what is timely filing? Timely filing dictates how quickly you need to submit claims after a service is completed. So if I perform a service on August 1st, how many days do I have to submit that? I'm going to say boilerplate, most contracts are, let's say, 90 days, but some are a year, like Medicare. Although, don't quote me on that because
things are changing.
If you have specific challenges, you can sometimes ask for longer periods, but again, be prepared for potential delays if it's not a boilerplate term. I'm going to put a personal note in here that I'd say you're better off to tighten up your internal processes for note completion and claim submission cadence than to extend your timely filing limit too far, because all this really does is slow your cash flow. And we're talking about best practices here. Best practice is that your claims are submitted within 2 weeks maximum. So, but I don't know all specialties, admittedly, and there probably are some specialties that really do need the extra time.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we've all heard of friends and family getting bills 8 months after the date of service, which seems a little wild to me, but
yeah.
So what about the actual submission process?
So now you're going to look at procedure for submitting claims. There's going to be a clause that sounds something like that. How do they want you to send out your claims? It seems archaic to say electronically or paper, but this should align with your internal processes. This may possibly be a place where they have a claims address, a payer ID for electronic submission, or any other information about modifiers required. So if that information is provided in that section of the contract, more than looking at how the claim should be submitted, because I'm going to say they're probably all expecting you to submit them electronically, those secondaries are a questionable thing at this point. Look for that information. Look for the claims address, the payer ID, and any information about modifiers, because that should go straight into your insurance contract reference list for future reference. You will be using that later. Soon later. Not too much later, really quite soon. So have that information documented because they're handing it to you so clean. This is the only time that it's going to be this clean. Otherwise, you're going to be searching for it.
Yeah, don't be looking.
Yeah.
All right, what's the last piece of the contract puzzle?
Okay, this one should seem like a no-brainer, but verify the specific credentialing identifiers for you. Is your NPI, tax ID, address, and taxonomy code all accurate? If you sign it and then submit claims differently than what is on the contract, those claims will not process properly. So you don't want to get stuck in that loop.
Yeah, when Kathryn says differently, insurance companies don't see a digit off and assume anything. They just deny the claim.
Yeah, so there's no creative thinking.
Yeah, when she says differently, you assume no grace.
There's nobody on the other end saying, oh, those two numbers are swapped. It's probably still for Lisa.
They probably meant that. Yeah.
No. There is no mercy here.
They deny the claim. So there you go. All right, Kathryn. So once the contract is signed, woohoo, clap, 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 we are in. What does that mean? We can immediately start seeing clients and submitting claims?
No, of
course not. Why not?
No, I'm going to say this many times in the next few minutes, I'm sure, but signing your contract does not mean you are immediately in network.
So that's a common misconception, without a doubt. So what's the actual green light to submit claims to insurance companies?
So there are different ways that insurance companies go about informing you of this information. Some send a welcome letter with a date after you've signed. Some include an effective date in the contract, which would be future. So you still are probably 30 to 60 days out from your start date. And some don't establish it until after the contract is signed. So you won't get anything until after you've signed something. But there will be a future date after the signing of the contract date. If I sign it on 8/1, 8/1 is not the date that I can start seeing patients in that network.
So the contract itself is not the proof, it's the start date.
Yes, exactly. Your signed contract is important for outlining terms, but it's not your proof of in-network status. It's not your initiation.
That's right.
of in-network status. It's your start date. If you submit claims for dates of service before your start date, they will be denied.
That's no good.
There is no appeals process for that.
None.
They will be final determination denials, which do exist. Man, this is maybe a case study. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but we've had a client that we've worked with that wanted us to do an aging project, and they had a bunch of denials. And before we even started really digging into them, our billing director said, these seem like accurate denials for credentialing that was not supposed to be submitted. And I don't think that there's going to be any recourse for this. Sometimes that's just really cut and dry. Like the fact that my billing director didn't even have to research and she already knew. That's how clear this particular truth is.
Yeah. You know what those providers did? They worked for free.
Yes, they did.
That's what they did. Or they charged the patients in cash.
Yeah, and I've seen so many providers get mad about this, but I'm like, you did it.
Yes.
This is on you. I'm sorry.
But largely because it's a misconception in the marketplace. So
yes.
that sounds like a really frustrating mistake to make. So, we've seen that mostly often. So, Kathryn, as you're talking about managing these crucial stages of contract finalization and start date establishment, how do our tools really come into play? How do they gel here? We've previously introduced the credentialing application follow-up log, the credentialing matrix, and the insurance contact reference guide.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love talking about how our tools can help. And like I said, they don't have to be our tools, but you got to use something. So we just covered how it's vital for tracking your application progress right up to approval. And then once you receive that contract, you'll update its status in the log to contract received. This ensures that you are no longer chasing the contract itself, but are now focused on its contents. So you can even note the date you plan to sign or any negotiation points directly in the log notes.
Yeah, so the log keeps everything organized, right? You're not wondering which application is where. It's your real-time snapshot. Here we are. There's that contract. Pizza gets delivered tomorrow.
Yes, and once you have a favorable contract, meaning you like the terms and you're ready to sign it and send it back to any provided instructions. I do want to make a note here. Just because you can negotiate terms, and I've outlined a bunch of terms, doesn't mean that you have to.
That's right.
In fact, I would say most of the time it's fine. It's minimal, but I think the point in highlighting the terms that we've highlighted so far is just to make you aware that these have practical implications on you and your practice. So whether you want to change the terms or not, I think it's important for you to know what it says.
Yeah, spend the time to read it. I know it's scary legal language. You're going to be okay. Get used to it, right? Yeah. Get comfortable with that contract because you're going to link arms with this partner. You want to make sure you have a good partner.
Yeah. Okay. So in the log, in the credentialing application follow-up log, you're then going to change the status to signed contract returned to payer, and then give yourself about a week before you do another follow-up because they should have this in hand. Next is your insurance contact reference guide. So your ultimate cheat sheet, remember, as we often say. This is where you're going to keep those long-term payer notes. So in the credentialing section of this guide, you should be detailing everything you've learned during the contract review. So the typical timeline they quoted, how they're going to notify you of issues, and importantly, what you successfully negotiated on terms, like timely filing and specific clauses, because if you can negotiate it now, you probably can negotiate it later. You'll also want to note any information regarding the information in the contract about claim submission identifiers, which we talked about. So if they provided a payer ID, a claims address, or any modifier information, note that there for future reference. Anything that you would consider a cheat sheet item, right?
Yeah, that's right. So keeping this information straight, right? Getting your ducks in a very, very neat row right off the bat will set you up for great success once you're ready to submit claims.
Yes. So the next tool that you mentioned, the credentialing matrix, is particularly powerful for these stages, especially for group practices. While we've touched on it briefly, this tool is designed to track the credentialing matrix of every finalized contract within your practice.
Yeah. So once a provider's contract is finalized, and their start date is established, that information goes directly into the matrix. The Matrix, like the movie with Keanu Reeves. It gives you a bird's eye view of who is credentialed with what payer when their reattestation dates are coming up, and their specific NPI and taxonomy details for each contract.
Yeah, so this is really important for a few reasons. It helps you manage your recredentialing date so you can identify any gaps in your network, and quickly confirming in-network status if a claim ever comes back with an NPI not registered denial, which would be that denial that you'd get if you did submit before your established date. You're going to have unrecognized provider, NPI not registered. I have this matrix that says this is my start date that I pulled straight from my contract. It gives you fighting power and it gives you clarity.
We see those reversed all the time with new providers
Yes.
who have kept their ducks in a row.
Yes. And I also want to mention that using the credentialing matrix and the log and all of these things are so helpful for tracking your KPIs. We're going to have a whole episode about credentialing KPIs, but I just want to mention that when you put the start date in your matrix and you compare that to the submission date in your log, you now have a record of how long this process takes for this payer, which I would say is one of the most important credentialing metrics.
Yeah, why is that?
I mean, I think it helps you with hiring and onboarding, and really it does help you evaluate how valuable a partnership is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are they efficient and quick and helpful to you?
For sure. You know, this happens, right? Practices come to us and we ask them, how are you credentialed, or who are you credentialed with? And sometimes we get, who knows? I don't know. I think I've been in that network with that payer. I'm pretty sure I am, or I was once. For us, when we hear a practice owner say that, it's a huge red flag, because it tells us that this critical information is not being tracked or managed or looked at or updated or clarified. And it means that later on, there's probably going to be billing issues down the road. So the credentialing matrix eliminates that guesswork, turning potential chaos into clarity. So
I would say more often than not, I see providers that don't know.
Yeah. And it makes sense. They've got a lot going on. They're up to their eyeballs in clinical work.
They probably have been in network with them before.
They probably
just
have
not
been.
Personally.
That's right. That's right. And so you just need this information. So Kathryn, we've walked through the journey. We've snaked through this of credentialing, from picking your game partners to finally getting your contract finalized and that all-important start date. It's a really detailed and lengthy process, yeah?
It is. It's really long. But by understanding each stage, it's kind of why we break it down. It helps it be a little bit more palatable. Staying organized as you
possibly can.
Humanly can manage. That's not how you say that. That's okay. You can navigate it successfully. Mastering credentialing and understanding your contract is truly the final initiation that lets you confidently play the claim game. It's the whole idea of, I have my game piece now that can enter the board.
That's great. This whole process ensures that your player piece is on the board and you're legitimate in the eyes of the payer. So without it, your revenue cycle just doesn't happen. It just doesn't start.
Right. And our core mission at Practice Solutions is to empower providers to focus on patient care by educating around best revenue cycle management processes. So we want to create and communicate clarity in a confusing, frustrating, outdated industry.
Health insurance and reimbursement do not have to be the elusive creature that you may fear or maybe think that it is. Right? So knowing these details helps give you a sense of clarity and peace of mind and control over your practice, right? When you know the levers of influence over your payment and reimbursement, you can make the best decision you can.
Right. So Jeremy, is now a good time to draw a case study card? Because I'm pretty sure we've seen multiple examples of people who either, one, signed a contract without seeing a fee schedule, 2, signed a contract without reading it, or 3, started seeing patients before their official start date. Can you tell us about one of those times?
I can. And I'll tell you about one of our favorite. I mean, this practice, I wish I could say their name. We didn't ask them before we did this, but this was one of my favorite practices we had the opportunity to work with. The provider was an engineer turned therapist, which is always a fun, conversion, right?
How did you get here?
Yeah, how did you get from engineering to therapy? But this is a very process-oriented individual. And this person started a practice here in Michigan, and it was not a shocker when they grew to be a thriving multi-location practice. They built a fantastic business, growing to 3 locations. They were ready to expand their reach by credentialing some of their absolutely amazing therapists at a second location. And it was really great growth. It was really fun to watch the wheels turn. It was like, maybe they're going to take over the whole game here in Michigan. But here's where the game got tricky, right? Against better advice, they decided that they were going to start seeing clients at a new location before the ink was dry on the insurance contracts.
Don't you see this so often when someone expands to a new location?
Yeah.
They get too excited.
Yeah, and it was an easy thing to miss. We saw it coming. Mm-hmm. We thought maybe, we had a big open conversation, but practice owner is the master of their fate, essentially, and they decided to move forward. And so here's what happened. Nearly a year and a half later of really relentless working your fingers to the bone work, one of our dedicated billers who's still with us battled to secure payment for those claims. It took a ton of time. Think about this for a second. 18 months for a batch of claims. That's a huge chunk of time and energy fighting for revenue that should have rightfully flowed in.
I'm surprised we got any payment for
that. It was really a major fee.
They had to backdate the contract?
Yeah, we had to backdate the contract. And we're not talking like a couple of phone calls, right? I mean, this consumed like almost daily hours every single week. It was just a relentless grind that only let up once we were able to negotiate directly with the insurance companies. And it's the kind of headache, the kind of time drain and potential lost revenue that most practice owners, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the margin. You don't have the emergency fund to handle an 18-month gap in payment, right?
No.
Meanwhile, that provider who is an employee of the practice is still working, right? And that person is waiting on money. And here's the actionable takeaway from this particular round of the claim game. You're going to save yourself a monumental amount of stress and time and potential lost income by simply waiting for that start date before you begin seeing patients under a new credentialing approval. Patience is really a virtue when it comes to navigating the insurance landscape.
Yes. Well, there you have it, folks. The importance of stages 4 and 5. I hope we outlined some clear terms to review so that you understand the implications for you. But you will be much happier with the end result if you tread cautiously through these stages with the information that we've provided in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And really be sure to tune in next week for our episode with Kathy Gilbert, where we gain insight from a true game maker on the insurance company's perspective on credentialing. She provides wonderful feedback and insight for us. We hope to see you back here on The Claim Game.
See you next time.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have 2 places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.